Hi, everybody. Welcome to the first ever episode of Meta Thought. This is a new series that we are starting where we want to bring the thought leaders to you. And there is none other person that I thought would be perfect for the first ever episode than Akshat himself. Hi, Akshat, and welcome to the first ever episode of Meta Thoughts.
Thank you, Anshul. I did not realize that this is the first episode of a new series that you're starting. I feel a lot more pressure now to perform well on this particular chat, but I hope that our audiences find this chat to be interesting and insightful. Thanks for having me.
Wow, great to have you. And I think, as always, you are being very humble. You're clearly a thought leader. I think what I would love to know to begin with is
Mhm.
tell us a little bit about your background, where you grew up, what did you do in your career in the starting?
So I moved around so quite extensively. So I spent majority of my formative year in a city called as Gwalior, so which is in Madhya Pradesh. I started my career fairly early. So I used to be a state level cricketer.
Oh, wow.
So I played professionally for approximately like 4.5, 5 years, right? So that was a very interesting phase in my life, right? And I thoroughly enjoyed it. I always wanted to be a cricketer. So it was a very disappointing period in my life when I could not become a professional cricketer. So that was part one of my career journey, so to say. Then I pivoted in entrepreneurship. So during college, I started my first venture, which was into GMAT tutoring. So I
Mhm.
used to teach some of the private clients on GMAT. So that is where I could say that I sort of started my career, not in a traditional sense, but at least like I dabbled with entrepreneurship.
Right.
That's when I got the idea that hey, at some stage I want to be an entrepreneur. Post that, I worked in consulting. That is where I started my career in. Worked with non-profit consulting. Worked with the government of India for a little bit as a consultant. Liked the consulting part of it, liked the social impact part of it, but fairly quickly realized that what you need like little bit of business sense. So I ended up going to INSEAD to complete my MBA. After that, I joined Dalberg, which is again a consulting firm. Worked there for a few years, and then in 2018, I quit the corporate world. And then I've been trying to build different ventures. Now I invest a lot, and you might know me from YouTube, right? So that is
Right.
where I'm fairly most active. So in a nutshell, that's my career journey.
What did you think about your MBA? Like, would you recommend everyone else to
Yeah.
do an MBA?
So I would say that the primary value add of doing an MBA is fairly simple, that it generates a pull factor. And pull factor simply means that if you are from a good college, good undergrad, and if you're applying for any job, then in the corporate world, yes, an MBA helps quite a lot. Even if you're trying to raise funding, even if you're trying to do something on the entrepreneurship side, MBA helps, right? Both from a knowledge point of view and that networking and pull factor part of it. But is that the only way
Hmm.
of building that pull factor? The answer is no. There are multiple options. So one needs to think. But I would say that if you can get into a top college and if you're getting scholarship, then it's a definite yes. Definitely go do an MBA. So yeah, in a short, a nutshell answer would be this, right? But I definitely do not see a lot of value of an MBA if you're going to an average college, right? So yeah.
Correct. So, what would your recommendation be if someone came to you and said, hey, I have to spend 25, 50 lakhs, need to either fund it myself or get a loan? Or would you recommend them that they go and do their own venture with that money or rather invest that money in the MBA?
I would not give like a direct answer to this. I would rather say that hey, there is like short-term goal
Hmm.
setting and there is a long-term goal setting, right? People are too focused on short-term goal setting. Ki if I invest like 25 lakhs, how much immediate return I am
Hmm.
making?
Hmm.
These kind of decision points, which I feel is slightly short-sighted. You must think a little bit far off, right? Because your career might last 40, 50, even 60 years these days because the life expectancy has gone up.
Hmm.
So think about it from a long-term perspective. If you feel that, hey, if I have a pull factor on my brand, is it going to really help me out for another 2, 3 decades? If the answer is yes, then don't worry about that 20, 25 lakhs that you might need to invest right now, right?
Hmm.
So yeah, so that would be my viewpoint. It's not a push that do an MBA or like not build your venture, but just think about it both from a short term and long term perspective and calculate the ROI both in the short term and long term. Don't just simply do like short term ROI calculation.
Correct. And then how did you start becoming a YouTube influencer?
I did not started out with the idea of becoming a YouTube influencer, so to say. I genuinely enjoy shooting content.
Hmm.
That is the reason why I shoot it. I keep on saying, and this is like the intro video on my channel also says that, I'm putting up content for my son, so to say, right? Because there are two ways that I can, sort of nudge my kid in a way. One, I can be after his life, then, what, study this, do
Hmm.
this, do XYZ. And yeah, so that's one model that I can follow. Or second day, I can say that, what, your dad puts up like a video a day. He did it for X number of years. So how about you also start trying some things and show some consistency on it, right? So
Nice.
I'm adopting like model two
Right.
to build that point, right? So, yeah, so that is one of the reasons why I started on YouTube and sustained on YouTube, and will be putting out a lot more content on YouTube. So I genuinely did not start with the goal that, hey, I will become like an influencer.
Hmm.
I find it very odd when people call me influencer per se, because genuinely whatever I'm studying during the day, things in which I'm investing in, things that I believe in. So those are the topics that I talk about on my videos, and I'm thankful that people like those videos.
So, like, one interesting thing was that when we were out for dinner yesterday, a lot of people just walked up to you and they were like, "Hey, Akshat, hi, Akshat." Even in the lift up here, a lot of people recognized you. How do you handle this popularity?
Okay, so I don't think I'm that popular. It just happened to have happened, right? That people know me a little bit.
Hmm.
They express their love. They are, so very, very thankful first and foremost. I don't think it's a question of handling popularity per se. I'm not that popular, right? So I mean, I think that's a you're asking that question to a wrong person, right?
No, I think, I mean, it's very clear. I'm sure, like, I'm not saying that you are a Bollywood superhero, but clearly in the finance world, in the YouTube world, many people look up to you. So I think, and that is very clear, what we saw from the audience.
So let me build
Yeah.
on an example, right? So it's
Hmm.
like if you have teachers in your school, right? You consider them to be celebrities, so to say, right?
Hmm.
So I'm sure that you would have had like a very popular math teacher or
Right.
physics teacher or English teacher.
Right.
So consider me like that, right? That, hey, I'm a popular teacher, right? So it feels good to be a popular teacher because I'm helping my students
Yeah.
and getting a little bit of fame out of it, so to say, right? So yeah.
Nice. That's a great comparison. What would your advice be if someone came to you today and said that, hey, I think I love what you're doing, Akshat. I would want to follow your footsteps and I would want to become a YouTube influencer. What would your advice be?
So two, three things. So one is that you must pick the area of influencer you want to become, right? So that's one. If you are doing it for money, then it's a really bad idea, simply because there is no barrier to entry when it comes to content creation. So anyone can become a content creator. It's like playing cricket, that,
Hmm.
there are only maybe people who play international cricket, they make money. People who play IPL or Ranji Trophy, they make money. And there
Hmm.
would be literally, maybe like less than 500 people who would be doing
Right.
all these three things in India. But how many kids play cricket in India, right? So, or what percentage of population in
Hmm.
India play cricket? So it's
Hmm.
huge, right? So same goes for social media, right? If you are doing it as a hobby, you are not going to mm, make it a career, right? So be very serious about it. The competition is really high, right? And because the barriers to entry is very low, so think about it a little bit. If you enjoy it, then do it. Otherwise, there is just no point in going after a career path thinking that, hey, I'm getting into this career path because the money is good. The money is very unpredictable.
Hmm.
It is a very long term game, right? And it takes a lot of effort to sustain it, right? So if you don't enjoy the type of content that you make, you're not going to sustain in this field, right? So that's a simple message that I will give, that a lot of people get into social media for wrong reasons. Please don't do that. It looks very lucrative from the outside, but if you think about it, the constant validation, the need to be focused, and bunch of other things that are involved at the back end, that is very jarring. It's not a I'm not trying to demotivate you. I'm just trying to tell you the realities of
Right.
social media, that many a times, because we get to see people that, hey, what kind of amazing life that they are living, but there is a lot of back end work that goes into creating that type of life, right?
Got it. And take me through how you got interested so much in investing, and what are your thought processes today about the investing world?
So investing की journey started with me making money, right? Literally, right?
Okay.
So I think initially I used to invest only in mutual funds,
Hmm.
because when you are literally starting out with your job, there is a lot of responsibility, so to say. You are just trying to find your feet in
Right.
the corporate world, so to say, right? So I mean, so I started with mutual funds. Did not make a lot of returns in the next 2 years. In the first 2 years of my investing, realized very quickly that the best way of investing is to handle your own money, at least for a little while. So that is when I started learning more about the stock markets, then moved into equities, started investing in equities slash index funds. Then subsequently, I started making slightly more complex investments, right? Be it doing like options trading, cryptos, investments, trading, positional trading, right? So then I dabbled with different forms of investing.
And what do you make out of this current market? Let's first talk about stocks. We'll move to crypto and Web3 afterwards. What do you think is happening? Like, there's a lot of sell off happening in the US market. Some of it has happened in India. What's your current sort of opinion and view?
Right. So I am. It's important to understand what type of an investor I am because that is the story that I would like
Hmm.
to tell you. So I'm a more of a macro investor, right? I look at the macroeconomics and invest. Majority of my investments are mid to long term, so to
Hmm.
say, right? And unless the fundamentals change, I would not sell my stuff, right, or book profits. So from that viewpoint, right, I mean, given the type of an investor I am, my story is fairly simple. That right now people don't have an option, but to invest in different assets, right? So that's point one because the currency, if you look at it macroeconomically, US dollar is getting deflated. In fact, if you look at the numbers, then approximately I think 97% of US dollar has been deflated in the last 80 odd years, which is huge, right? I mean,
Hmm.
the
Right.
entire dollar value has been deflated. Is losing 4% of its value every single year compared to US dollar. So we
Right.
have gotten into a race where one currency is getting deflated compared to the other currency, right? If
Right.
you think about it from a macroeconomics point of view, that is the problem we are in. If you don't invest in something, then you're automatically getting messed up because of this existing system that all the currencies are getting deflated. One currency is getting deflated more than the other, and the world is just pushing blame from one country to the next, right? So that is precisely what is happening. So you have no other option but to own assets, not money, right? So which assets do you move to? Do you move to like cryptos? Do you move to stock markets? Do you move to real estate? Do you move to gold? Do you move to bonds? You need to make your pick. There are pros and cons to each of these options, but the important point is that please don't stay invested in money. You have no other option. If
Right.
you're making money, then you will have to invest in a volatile environment. Think about it this way, that in 94, 95, the FD rates in India were roughly 14%,
Hmm.
right? And inflation in India was roughly around 10 to 12%. So you were making real return, so to say, of 2%.
Hmm.
Right now, the opposite is the situation that inflation in India is 8%, and your FD returns are roughly 5.5, 6%. So in real terms, you are losing 2.5%, right? Additional data point. If you look at any government linked schemes, for example, if you take a look at Sukanya Samriddhi Yojana, if you look at like even senior citizen schemes,
Hmm.
none of them are giving you returns of more than 8%. So even in government linked schemes, you are losing money by investing in them, right? So which is unreal, right? In a way,
Right.
you will assume that hey, FD में we are getting like 5.5% return, 6.5% return, so बहुत अच्छा हो रहा है, right? No, think about it from how much real money you are making. You are not making anything. You are losing money at the end of the day
Right.
through. So that's what I would say. That hey, whether the market is volatile or it's not volatile, it's a secondary question. You have no other option but to invest, because if you just simply park your money in currencies that you're holding INR in your FD, or if you're holding your INR in savings bank or in USD terms, you are still losing money like at a mad rate, right? So that's what is happening.
So I think, why are we in this situation according to you? And like, what is gonna turn? Like, what will happen to this inflation versus, let's look at like FD rates? Can this turn back to the environment we had in 94, 95 according to you?
So the short answer, I don't know, right? And there are a few reasons for that. So one is that the world or governments. The flow of logic goes like this, right? That politics dictates like economics,
Hmm.
economics dictates like finance, finance dictates like stock markets slash
Hmm.
crypto markets. So
Hmm.
that is the chain of logic. So since we have pursued inflationary politics, it has led to inflation in the world, right? So that
Right.
is what is happening.
Right.
It's very easy. It's like eating sugar, right? So the more sugar you eat, the more you will feel good in the short term.
Hmm.
You might feel very energized like a kid, right?
Hmm.
But in the long term, you will have diabetes probably, right? Or like some health related issue,
Right.
which is not nice. But that is precisely what is happening. Another data point that, for example, if you consider after 2020, almost 70-80% of the currency in circulation in the US has been printed post 2020.
Hmm.
Is that not like money diabetes, right? So to say, right?
Right.
So there is something fundamentally wrong. Neither me you or anyone else can predict it. Why am I saying it? Because even Feds can't predict inflation. If they could
Correct.
have predicted inflation, why they would have been slightly more sensible in terms of printing money. So we don't know if we will ever get back to that 94, 95 scenario ever again. Probably, hopefully, we should get there at some stage, provided that the world increases its productivity. That's the argument that everyone keeps on making. But the entire argument of how the inflation is being defined, how it is being tracked, there is something deeply flawed in how the money is operating right now.
What is, like, explain to me a little bit more there? Like, what do you think is flawed in that?
So think about it this way, right? I mean, if the currency is devalued at a
Hmm.
certain rate,
Hmm.
there is something wrong, right? I can't tell you how much wrong it is, right? At what rate the currency should be devalued, but the currency is getting devalued at a really fast rate, right? That's
Right.
all I can tell you, right?
Right.
No macroeconomist, even the Feds, they have a handle on inflation. Even they don't know at what velocity the money will move. Think again, like, I mean, do a thought exercise here that if you we talk about inflation, right?
Hmm.
And how do we measure inflation? We measure inflation by looking at that a government will define like a basket of goods.
Right.
It will have like atta dal chawal, right? And it will have like 5 rotis in
Hmm.
it. It will have like one McDonald's burger, whatever like items
Hmm.
that they are putting in here. Now, if government has to manage the inflation number, instead of 7.5%, they want to bring it down to 7.2.
Hmm.
Can they not change it? Because government
Hmm.
decides the constituents of that
Correct.
basket, right? So they
Yeah.
can definitely manipulate that to a certain extent to paint a rosy political picture. And that is precisely what is happening. People don't understand that, hey, inflation, we are paying for inflation one way or the other, and we are paying for this excess money printing one way or the other. It is either through high taxation or high inflation. Just India having or US having an inflation rate of around 10-12%, it's unheard of, right, for the
Yeah.
last 45, 50 years.
Yeah.
If that does not worry people from a macroeconomics point of view, then nothing will. Is there something that you can do? The only thing that you can do is that stay in assets, right? Don't stay in money, right? That's because money is a losing proposition. If you have to pay your friends, if you have taken borrowed money from them, pay them now, right? It becomes their headache how they will be spending the money.
Right.
But the deepest problem right now is that the currency is getting devalued at a very fast rate, which people are not realizing. It's creating like inflationary pressures, whatnot, right? I mean, things go beyond that because, as you might have read in macroeconomics or in newspapers, that money has a certain velocity.
Hmm.
You can't measure the velocity of the money, how it
Hmm.
impacts different asset classes, right? It's really difficult to do.
Correct.
There is no such studies that has been done, and that is the reason why me, Feds, or anyone else can't tell you what the exact impact of that velocity of money on different asset classes would be, right? So yeah, so that's the deepest problem, that A, we can't measure like the velocity of money, and B, the rate at which or the velocity at which government thinks it can move that money by printing more of it. They have no handle on it, right? So they keep on doing it, playing the short term game, ruining the economic health of people in the long run.
So we were discussing about this last night as well. That what, like you rightly said, that we are on the sugar high diabetes right now. Is the idea that for us to come out of it is that reduce the sugar, which is what Fed is doing, and is it going to be possible? Are you not gonna kill the patient, so to say, in that attempt?
I don't know, right? So, what my hypothesis would be that this dance of printing more money,
Hmm.
creating artificial growth,
Hmm.
and then deflating that growth when things go out of hand. That is a cycle that is being exhibited. That
Right.
post 2020 printed a lot of money. It led to insane amount of growth.
Hmm.
So many stocks gave like crazy returns. Now the artificial liquidity has been pulled out by
Hmm.
increasing the interest rate. So this is the cycle that is going on, right, in simple terms. Now this entire sine wave, right, of these three steps will keep on happening every now and then. Interest rate बढ़ा दिया, then they dropped it. All that stuff will keep on happening. Growth will again need to be managed,
Hmm.
right? So it's a political nightmare right now, because if we study it from a conceptual point of view, then there are two things at play, right? So right now we need to increase the growth of the world because
Hmm.
people want it. uh, Investors want it, right? There are a lot of stuck IPOs in the market, right? They
Right.
are trying to get an exit in the
Right.
market. They are stuck, unfortunately, because all the other big companies in India, they have lost like 70-80% of their
Yeah.
valuation, whatnot. They need that sugar high again, right? So yes, in the short term they are going to provide that sugar high because that accelerates growth. But on the flip side, You can't let common people suffer. If they start seeing inflation hitting like 20%, 30%, and every month, if your pyaz tomato costs like 100 rupees a kg, and next month it goes to like 120 rupees a kg, then next month after that it goes to like 140, 150 rupees a kg, then people will go crazy on the roads, right? So that becomes a political nightmare. So the thing that I see happening over the next couple of years maybe is that, hey, there will be series of these sugar high, right? Push a lot of money, increase growth, give some people some exit relief, bring it down. Then again, sugar high, bring it down. Long term sustainable solution is pretty simple, right? That, hey, you need to decrease the speed of that treadmill, right? You can't stop that treadmill completely from running. Right now, you have started a treadmill and you can't stop it.
Correct.
The world just needs to run, right? They were running at like 25 kilometers per hour. Then they moved to 7. Now everyone is asking where is growth. So okay, put 9. But there is only a speed up to which you can run, right? I mean, you cannot become a cheetah. You are a human at the end of the day, right? So you cannot forever run on that treadmill at a speed of like 500 kilometers per hour or whatever that speed is, right? So you can't do it. So the only sensible thing is that decrease the speed of that treadmill, and hopefully one day we'll get to sensible levels where people can walk on that treadmill at a normal speed of whatever 1-2 kilometers per hour or whatever that speed is. Right?
So very interesting point you made about some of the startups which did IPO recently. So as a startup founder as well, how did we get here? Like in terms of these startups losing 70-80%, was this like, I know that we have been wrong and a lot of stocks, even like Amazon, have been battered and it's a huge company. But I mean, these companies just IPO'd. Like, is this like, are we now at a very great value or were we at a ridiculous high value before?
So a good example that I can use here is that if you go to a buffet, right, and if you eat at a buffet, you are likely to eat more. Why? Because you're probably paying like whatever, like 1,000, 1,200, 1,500 rupees to eat at that buffet.
Right.
So you will get your paisa vasool, right, by eating at that buffet, and you will usually, most of the people will eat more than what they can handle, right? So that is one, and that happens why? Because there is more availability of food.
Right.
You have already bought the ticket to that buffet. Now nothing can be done, right?
Right.
Vis-a-vis, if you go and order a la carte at a fine dining restaurant, then you would be very selective. You will probably order like one dish and be done with it, right? So the same is happening in the economy, that because there is availability of so much money, right? And that buffet of money is there. Startups, how do they get to that money, right? It's through conduits like hedge funds, VCs, investment banks.
Right.
They get access to that excess printed money, right? One way or the other. Then they disperse it to different startups. Startups have a pressure to perform, right? To accelerate their organic/inorganic growth. It's mostly inorganic growth. Therefore, you are seeing so many layoffs at like top billion-dollar funded companies. Think about it, right? I mean, India's top companies, I'll not name them, right? Top startups, which have become recently turned unicorn, they are firing like 10%, 20% of their workforce. Why is that happening? Because the artificial money has dried up, right? That's a simple thing. People are not, or startups are not getting to that next round of funding. Opposite was the case a year back, that because there was so much availability of money, and that money is pretty much useless, as we were talking in the previous section, that hey, if you have a friend, go pay your loans to them, right away, right? So that is what is happening, that every time the government prints more money, it's free debt to them. They are borrowing money for free. You as a common citizen will end up paying for it one way or the other, but to that government, that's almost free money, right? Because you can always raise the debt ceiling, and we can get into that discussion also, but that's free money. Now it will get in the hands of rich people like hedge funds, investment banks, whatnot. They will eventually go to the startup space/big corporates. So therefore, so much funding in the startup world happened. Now that growth is unsustainable, right? And they need to scale back. So it is again going back to that analogy that I was using. Then the speed of treadmill will need to come down, and it is somewhat coming down with pain, right? So every time the speed of treadmill is decreased, there will be pain, right? So that's a simple argument there.
So two questions here as a startup founder. One, if you are already in a startup which is funded, what would your advice be to the founders to manage this? And B, if you're now looking to start up, what should they think about in terms of funding?
I don't know, right? I mean, from that perspective, because I have not built, like, I generally avoid like taking funding for my startups, right? So I don't know how to play that inorganic growth game, to be very, very honest with you. So I have no advice to like startup founders. But if someone is starting up, right, then my perspective would be that, you know what, ask yourself, why are you starting up? Does your business require crazy amount of money or not? Majority of the businesses do not require crazy amount of money. They don't need to play that inorganic growth game. Think about it this way, that hey, would every business need to exhibit network effect like Facebook? The answer is no, most likely not. Probably a lot of startups, in fact majority of the startups, I would argue, do not need that network effect. They don't need to grow as fast as it is probably made out to be.
Hmm.
So therefore I would say that it's very important that you think about it from the point of view that what type of startup are you building? Does it really need that crazy amount of money? And when will you move to organic profits? It's not just revenues, it's first profits and then organic part of that profit. It's very easy to sort of, I would not term it easy, but one of the models that is being followed right now is that hey, just pay people to use your product, right?
Right.
A classic case in point would be Uber Eats, right? I
Hmm.
remember that I was living in Delhi and I used to order like a chocolate waffle at 10 or 15 rupees. There was a driver who used to drive to my home, give me
Right.
that waffle. Would I, as a customer, keep on ordering it? Yes, you bet, right? I'll get fat. I'll probably gain like 20 kgs or something, right? But I'll still keep on ordering that chocolate waffle because I'm getting it at 10 rupees at the convenience of my home, a
Correct.
decent quality waffle with chocolate on it. So I would do it. But is that a sustainable growth strategy or even a profit making strategy for you as a startup? The answer is no. But is it helping you make revenues? The answer is yes, right? So but yeah, I mean, that's the simple argument that I'm making, that a lot of actions of several of the startups are such, hey, just revenue growth at no cost, at whatever cost. So I don't know if that model is sustainable or even sensible. I'm not qualified to speak on that topic.
Fair enough, but let me now talk about something that is much closer to your heart, which is education, right? So, if someone wanted to be an edtech entrepreneur today and they were starting today, what would your advice be to them?
So I would give a very contrarian advice, and this is the same advice that I follow. So I believe in the concept of pull-based selling, not push-based selling, right? So what does that do, right? So one is that you get an interesting set of. So let me quickly explain the difference between
Hmm.
push versus pull-based selling. So push-based selling simply means that hey, you have like a big sales team, people are calling up, you are
Hmm.
building a sales
Hmm.
funnel, you are doing like crazy amount of email marketing. Why? Because you want to sell more of your product. Nothing wrong. That's one model, right? Second model would be a pull based model. So pull based model simply means that hey, you create like interesting products, people come to you, people really search for you, right, in a way, or they like you, right, and they eventually end up becoming your customers, so to say. They help you improve the product also, they benefit from that also, they are early users also, they will give you genuine feedback also.
Hmm.
Then slowly expand from there on, right? So that is what I would say, that hey, do like pull based marketing, because these days creating product is one part of the equation, selling it is another. I think people don't need too much help. They would have a internal understanding of what
Hmm.
type of products to build.
Hmm.
But marketing is something which fairly remains standard, right? And right now the model is that hey, do like a lot of crazy push based. So that is something that I'm not too much in favor of. Yes, you should expand. I'm not saying that hey, don't run ads and all that stuff. Do it, hire a sales force also, but do it like organically. If from day one your goal is that you know what, because we have taken funding, now let us just scale it to like 100 cr in revenues in like year one itself by doing like crazy push based marketing, then probably that is not the right approach, so to say.
So this is interesting. See, in our first product at Totality, we were growing organically. We did real money gaming. We were the first company which did real money gaming for mobile casual games. 6 months later, we had a lot of venture-backed companies coming, and because of a lot of push-based marketing, all of them are losing crazy amount of money. But they took away leadership from us, right? And so my rebuttal, if you gave me that advice today, would be, but Akshat, like I did the business, other people copied it, they got the money, they are now leaders. I'm sort of becoming irrelevant. I kind of feel bad. Don't I now need to play the same game?
Maybe not, right? I mean, it really depends on your business model. It really depends on the nature of your industry, right?
Hmm.
If it's a network effect based industry, if you feel that the early mover has a massive advantage, then maybe doing that push based marketing makes a lot of sense. But since you asked me that question in edtech viewpoint, right? So I typically feel that even if you pick the biggest edtech companies in India, they genuinely don't need to do push based marketing. And if you're a new entrepreneur and if you're trying to take market share away from big established player, you can do it by doing simple pull-based marketing, right? So that's the viewpoint that I will share, because education is not a winners take all type of a market. Education is, people will eventually spend a lot of time, effort, energy figuring it out where they are getting the best course slash best value from. So from that angle, pull-based marketing would make sense in the edtech's concept, but I get your point. So yeah, so in case of tech startups, the story might be slightly different. If you're exhibiting network effect and if you need to scale up quickly and if you see utility in it, then it might make sense to undertake a lot of funding. But the simple message that I want to give out is that not all startups are about driving crazy valuations, that valuations badha lo wala game, right? Or it's not about like glorification of valuation needs to stop, because a lot of startups should be bootstrapped more than we think, right? So that's the simple message that I would want to give out.
So, see, even in real money gaming, my view is that there is no network effect. There are obviously economies of scale, like there are in any business, right? Like the larger you become, per user cost, per cost of unit of effort, things will become more optimal for you, right? There are definitely no network effects in real money gaming or fantasy gaming, in my view. However, even let's keep the example of edtech, right?
Yeah,
There are clearly economies of scale in edtech as well.
maybe.
Would you
Yeah,
agree? No?
maybe. Yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
interesting. So, firstly, let me ask you that, right? Because the question about the valuations and funding would depend. And then I guess a follow on question would be, if I'm starting in edtech and I follow your example, should I not be worried that one of the major players, we all know the major funded players of edtech without needing to take the name, they would come, they would copy my idea. So, I'll become irrelevant because even if I grew something, they have now started to do it as well.
It depends, right? I mean, you need to ask yourself like a slightly more nuanced question here, right? That what is the objective with which, how do you define success, right, in edtech, right? If your success is that he has sold like more products, maybe, right? If your success matrix is that I did something good, my product is very creative, it's benefiting a lot of people, then that's like, a sensible argument, right? If you define success as that he have optimized the or extracted the maximum juice out of the product that I have created, it's helping people who want to be helped, then yes, that could be a matrix of success, right? Now, what according to me, a lot of edtech companies are simply doing is that they are trying to convert people who are not even interested in buying a product into product users. Now, would you define that as success? The answer could be yes or no. That yes, they have successfully sold more units, and it reflects into the revenue number. But have you truly like sort of sold product to people who would benefit from that product? The answer most likely would be a no, right?
Right.
So it's a conflict, right? That story can be spun in any way, right? It could be considered as ethical, non-ethical, right? Definitely not illegal, so to say. So that's the argument. But the story changes if you're looking at tech, right? In tech, if you take like Facebook's example, then that product is mostly free to use, right? Or if you create a better UI UX by raising a lot of funding, then it improves like every customer's usability of that product, right? So you're removing some friction points. All those are good things that need to be there for a tech company, right? If you're, for example, in Web 3.0 space, man, if the architecture of your blockchain, or if you create a blockchain, is very secure and you need like crazy amount of funding for that, makes sense, because you are, at the end of the day, you are improving user experience, which will translate into more users coming onto that product.
Right.
So probably the product needs a lot of funding. But in edtech, the way we are defining like success, according to me, is not correct, right? So that's what I would say.
So you would define success in edtech. What is the success metric for you?
So it's very simple, right? Everyone who wants to use that product willingly, they get access to my product, right? And they are buying that product willingly without being manipulated to do so.
Interesting. So in your case, you would definitely not do a lot of push-based marketing then.
No, I would not. I would do push-based marketing. For example, if you run like Facebook ads, or if you're running like Google ads, or if you're running even YouTube ads, then it's not push per se, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
it's
it's
more awareness.
yeah, it's awareness, right? That hey, okay, fine, great, I'll go check your product. I'll take a look. If it makes sense to me, I'm okay with it. But if I have to call you up 50 times, send you 500 SMSs, right? Stalk you on WhatsApp also, ask 10 of your friends to give you referrals also, right? Then
Right.
it's like crazy push-based marketing. Then I'm somewhat, you know, using certain means that I personally would not be comfortable using, right? So,
Right.
so that's my viewpoint on it.
And now let's tackle, because a lot of people were interested to get a job in startups because it has been really, cool, in vogue to actually work at startups as well. Given this recent scenario of funding and what we are seeing, a lot of the top startups actually laying off people, etc. For someone who is now looking to get start their career and get a job, would you recommend it's better time to actually take a job at a more established company, or is it still cool to take a job with startups?
So it depends on the objectives. So two line of thoughts here. So one is that if you are of the view that hey, I'm doing a job so that I can leverage it forward, and I want to stay in the corporate domain, then doing a corporate job with a top firm makes the most sense. That hey, go via the traditional route, become an investment banker, management consultant, product manager, so to say, and you stick with corporate where there are proper structures, organization, training systems, whatnot, right? So that's that one category of people, right? The second category of people would be यार अपना कुछ करना है, right? Eventually चल के startup बनाना है, right? So I want to build my startup. So maybe doing like consider your job as an apprenticeship, right? So that could be a model more ripe and suitable for people who and that category of people or those categories of people should go into the startup domain as soon as they can. So that's what I would say. It's asking me food preferences, right? Do you prefer like kadai paneer, or do you like butter paneer masala, right? So it's like really depends, like what, or do you even like paneer, right, in the first
Right.
place, right? So it really depends.
So, because a lot of people of late, thanks to the funding fueled frenzy of salaries, like startups to attract talent have had the resources to actually throw the salary, and a lot of people from colleges are moving purely from it's a better reward, right? Now that this risk has gone up, if I just want to optimize as a employee risk to reward, do you think that people should be thinking that way as far as their jobs are concerned as well? Is it purely a risk reward ratio?
Yeah, so risk reward equation is plays out everywhere, and you should do the risk reward computation, right? But I think the larger point there is very simple, that if you are learning something out of your job, or if you're earning out of your job, right, and if you're getting good mentorship, then those are baseline things that can help you transform your career one way or the other, right? From using those ingredients, you can move to a corporate world also, you can start your own startup also, you can do a variety of things, right? So don't overthink it, right? I just ask yourself a simple question that hey, do you want to do a startup? Then yes, then okay, fine, work for a startup, you will learn a lot more
Right.
at that scale. And even if you pick the names of some of the biggest entrepreneurs in India, they have at some stage worked in a startup, right? So that is the roadmap that they are telling you. But probably like established players, like I might be off, but I'll still say it. For example, I don't think that Satya Nadella, Sundar Pichai, or Indra Nui have worked at startups, right? They work with core corporate, transformed their career, grew there, right, and became like leaders in that space, right? So there are like so many different roadmaps, you don't need to follow one.
Got it. Okay, we're going to go back to the investing part. I think an interesting thing you mentioned is rupee is depreciating around 4 to 5% every year versus the dollar. So then are you recommending that people sitting in India, how do we get access to these dollar assets so that we can get this additional 4 to 5%?
So multiple ways, right? So one is that you can directly invest in the US, right? So that's could be option one, right? You can buy like US stocks. That's one. Second is that you can earn in dollars, right? So that is option two. That if you're sitting and doing like freelancing work in India, and if you're charging your clients sitting in the US, then technically you are earning in dollars. Yes, when you get that money into your bank account in India, it gets automatically converted.
Right.
But at least you are earning in dollars, right? So that's like two, right? Third point would be that hey, you can move to like Web 3.0, right? Ecosystems, you can invest in a range of different assets there, NFTs there, bunch of different things. That could be three, because it's more cross border asset class, so to say, right? So these are three options that I can think of right off the bat. There could be multiple more, but yeah, these are like something that any investor can start dabbling with right away.
So you have already mentioned Web 3.0, something very close to my heart. So let's first talk about a little bit about your view on crypto and Bitcoin and Ethereum and the crypto market in general. What are you thinking here?
So my stand has been I've been very vocal about the fact that number one, I believe in the crypto economy. Number two, I believe in good crypto economy, right? Because crypto is an asset class. Right now, if you speak with like 100 people, the assumption is that hey, there is something called as a crypto coin,
Right.
and everything is like a crypto coin, and it is going to take away like US dollar and INR, all that stuff. So no, that's not the correct understanding. Crypto is very much like stocks or bonds, is an asset class. There are range of products in the crypto space 99% of those crypto products are bad products. I've been very vocal about it. I myself openly say that, hey, in like the crypto domain, almost majority of my investment, almost 90% plus investment in crypto that I do, it's into Bitcoin and Ethereum only. Right? So those are two major blockchains, right, or two most prominent blockchains that have been tried and tested to a very large extent. Final point is that I am a diversified crypto investor, so I use crypto as a diversification. A lot of every time I talk about crypto, that what you're supporting crypto. By I'm supporting like stocks. I'm an 80% stock investor, 20% crypto investor. Right. So for me, crypto is an asset class. It's a growing asset class. I genuinely feel that every generation gets a investment opportunity of their lifetime. So to say, for our parents or grandparents, it was real estate. If your grandfather or a grandmother purchased a piece of land anywhere in India, they would have been sitting on crazy returns up to this point. Yeah. For our parents, it was stocks, right? If you would have invested after Harshad Mehta scam in India, right? Right after when the market fell, and if you would, irrespective of whichever stocks you are buying, majority of them, you would be sitting on a profit, right? And for us, it looks like crypto. I can be off, no doubt about that. Every investment class comes with its own set of risks. You can always look at these things in the hindsight, no doubt about that. But yeah, there are like fundamental reasons at play as to why crypto from this point is likely to grow, right? We can look at the data. A lot of things can go wrong, no doubt about that, because it's a new asset class. But yeah, it can also happen that the story turns out very positively, and it definitely becomes a key aspect or the lifetime opportunity that I'm talking about. Right?
So, what would be needed to have this mass adoption for Web3 in India? What do you think? How will this play out? Because we are seeing a very different tone of the government, the RBI, particularly over the last month, with all the closing of UPI after a central exchange started talking about their use of it. So, how will this play out according to you in India?
So I feel that it's not a India specific question, because as I was saying that, hey, crypto is like a cross border asset. It's not like confined to India per se, right? Yes, if Indian government support, it helps in acceleration. But Indian government, so building upon our chat last night from dinner, so if I add more to it, it would be this that. So there are two reasons, right? I mean, two ways in which crypto adoption can pick up. Indian government creates an ecosystem or a supportive ecosystem, or at least a non-negative ecosystem, right, where crypto can thrive. Or second is, and that can happen willingly, right? Or second is that it can happen unwillingly, right? For example, if India sees itself losing in the race, that hey, let's say US is supporting, it's already supporting the crypto ecosystem. If it grows big, people are migrating there. A lot of companies are coming up, a lot of jobs are coming up, and Indians do not have access to those jobs or those opportunities. Then by default, you know either people will move out of India to these locations. It's already happening. A lot
Right.
of India based crypto startups are moving to Singapore and Dubai as we
Yeah.
speak. In fact, some of the largest crypto startups that used to be in India, or founders that used to be in India, have moved to Dubai.
Correct.
So that will happen unwillingly, right? So these two models, that either India becomes like a positive crypto, creates a positive crypto ecosystem, or B, and it does it willingly. Yeah. Vis-a-vis, it does like unwillingly because it's losing in the race, right?
Got it. And a lot of people still think like this Web3 is all, hocus pocus, voodoo magic. Why? How will it actually change my life? What are some of the areas that you see? Like, do you see yourself being an influencer, content creator? How do you see some of these use cases affecting what you are doing?
So it's fairly simple, right? I mean, technology changes and nature of technology changes. It is going to change to something. That's a proven fact. It
Yep.
might not be Web 3.0, right? Whatever we talk about it. Right now, it looks Web 3 is literally number one option here. Again, if you
Right.
have a better option, please comment and tell us,
Yes.
right? So that is point one. Why is it likely to be the next phase of technology? Because it is more immersive, right, to put it simply. And if you think about it, just understand it from the example of mobile phones, right? Initially, when mobile phones started out, all that BlackBerry and whatnot, right, pretty expensive, not that great use cases.
Yeah.
Then we moved to like slightly better smartphones. Okay, great, right? I mean, I can do a lot of stuff on my smartphone. And now smartphones have computing power, which even back in the 80s supercomputer did not have, like
Yeah.
80s, 90s supercomputer did not have. So technology has grown. The smartphone market has completely changed. It has become more and more and more immersive. Now talks are that it will become like somewhat of a wearable. You don't even need your smartphones. Everything can be immersed by using wearable devices, etc. So same is the case, right? I mean, if the evolution of technology is going to happen in certain direction, it happens because the underlying use case is immersion, right? That you are able to immerse yourself really well. Now, ask yourself a simple question: that if you're doing a Zoom meeting, right, sitting at home, how immersive is it? And the answer is that hey, fine, it gets the job done, but it is not truly immersive. Can a better system be built? The answer seems like a yes. Then okay. What would be the underpinning of that system? That okay, it will have a lot of utility. That hey, if it is a more immersive, b, the developer ecosystem will build it, and they will build it because there is a lot of money to be made, and it can be done at a slightly inexpensive price. So given those fundamental set of principles, web 3 is where this will happen, not in web 2.
Right. Okay. And do you think like things like YouTube, Instagram, etc., would also have a Web3 version?
Maybe, right? Most likely yes, right? Some variant of it, some part of it will start migrating, but yeah, I mean everything will be on web 3, right, at some stage, because that is just better technology, right? So to say, very similar again, right? At some point in time we used to use like dial up based internet, right? Did it used to get job done back then? Yes, right. We
Yeah.
were very happy with it. That you
Yeah.
know what, we are able to see a web page. It's colorful,
Yeah.
whatnot. But now, if you have to use like a dial-up internet, I've not tried using it, or I don't even know if you can use it.
Right.
But if you try using it now, it will suck, and you will probably curse it because it takes like 1 day to buffer a YouTube video, right? So
Right.
it's bad, right, from that angle. So similarly, if better functionalities can be built or less friction can be created in a certain part of the economy, or anything where less friction can be created, it will move towards that. That is where the customers will move one way or the other.
So if I'm sitting, whether I'm a founder or I am a student or I'm getting into this as a career, do you think I should just wait for Web3 to actually become more mainstream, or is there a way that I should start getting involved? What would your suggestion be to me?
You can't wait per se, because we don't know, right? I mean, when, because evolution is like the S curve adoption happens in a very non-linear way, so to say, right? You don't know. Once the S curve is started, you don't know when the next layer of innovation will happen here. It
Right.
can happen really fast. It can happen slow, and by the time you catch up, you might become outdated, whatnot, right?
Right.
So we don't know the innovation of that S curve. How will that take place? So very very hard to predict from that angle. But please don't wait around, right? Because you don't know. It's like trying to time the market to buy the best stocks. You can't do it, right? So similarly here, you can't do it. We know for a fact that hey, this is where the least friction right now seems to be.
Correct.
Better technology seems to be. So it will migrate to that point, no doubt about that. Very simply put, think about like 90s internet, right? Everyone knew that hey, internet is going to get big. How much time will it take? We don't know.
Yeah.
Probably a decade, 2 decades. Should you build internet-based companies? Yes, a lot of people tried to build internet-based companies during the 90s bubble, so to say, towards the end of 90s bubble. A lot of companies went bust, but did internet become big eventually?
Right.
You tell me, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
we are
yeah.
like everything
Massive.
is like
Yes.
internet based now,
Yep.
right? So same is the argument with web 3, that there will be a lot of challenges along the way. But will web 3 become big? The answer is 99.99% yes, right? I mean, there is no way that it will not become big. Are challenges going to be there? 100%, right? Challenges are going to be there, but it
Right.
will get there.
Cool. So one question I have regarding Web3 is, would you consider launching like an Akshat token for your community?
So right now, no. My answer would be a no. It's more to do with my personal choices, not because of the belief that what Web3 will not grow. But right now, the utility that I see, right, in terms of launching my own token, given the other areas of work where I'm involved, so that will take a lot of time, effort, energy, right? So yeah, I would probably not get there as of now, but subsequently, yes.
So if we said that, hey, the utility of your tokens are going to be that people can actually maybe meet you in person, attend some live sessions that you give, take some of your courses, actually, show that they are actually really loving the content that you have. Isn't that a good utility? This is something like what Gary Vee did in the US as well, right?
The what I do versus what Gary Vee does is slightly different. So Gary Vee is trying to build a community per se, right? That's community driven. My content is utility driven, right? For example, if I'm doing launching courses, right? So the value add or why people would want to avail that courses is that because they will get to learn something, right? Now, if I see some kind of immersive play there, right? That hey, okay, if I'm delivering lectures via Zoom, now if I can turn that into a more immersion oriented ecosystems, then I would be interested in doing it. But right now, I don't see that utility coming in right away, right? Without pulling a lot of weight, right? So that is one part of the equation. The second part of the equation is that whatever additional functionalities that I want to bring in, a lot of it can be done on Web 2.0 itself, right? So, for example, if I want to, let's say, organize like a community meeting event or a meetup, right, then I can do it, right? I mean, just by making like a simple announcement. Then for that, it makes very little sense to me to create that ecosystem as of now for me, right?
Got it. So there is obviously in Web3 play and earn has been really, really popular, right? You are obviously doing things in edtech. How do you think can something like learn and earn evolve?
Right. Yeah, definitely. That's a play that will definitely evolve at some point, right?
What would that look like according to you? Like if you had to bet, like, or if you not bet, if you had to take a educated guess as to what it would take, what would it look like?
As the name suggests, right? So, for example, it would involve that the more you learn on a particular platform, the more you would earn, right? So, consider, for example, Duolingo, right? So, right now,
Hmm.
when you when you learn on Duolingo, you get like linglots, right? So, which are like diamond-looking things. It looks pretty, gamification, but can you make some money out of it, or can you subsidize your paid courses, so to say? If Duolingo had, the answer is probably no. Uh, can you do that in learn to earn type of tokens? The answer seems to be yes, right? And it also gives you the opportunity to create an ecosystem of courses, right? I
Yeah.
mean, for example, if you are launching your course and I'm launching my course,
Yeah.
then we can come together and we can launch a token together, right? And then people can, avail these courses. Then we can bring in third creator, fourth creator, so on and so forth, right? So that is what the ecosystem might look like according to me.
So then, like we're talking about learn to earn, there's already, I don't know if you have seen a lot of startups who are doing move to earn. Move and earn, they are actually saying like I think Strava, where you're looking at your cycling or running, you can actually, the more you move, the more you earn. Do you think like everything moves to this model? Like it's move to earn, learn to earn, eat to earn, like everything has this element of earning. Is that basic to everything we do?
It's an interesting question, right? I would not want to give a rushed response, right?
Right.
It seems like it that a lot of the current Web 2.0 can be transitioned into like Web 3.0, but will all parts of Web 2.0 will go into Web 3.0? I don't know. I don't think so, right? And even if it does, the migration will take a lot of time. Uh, yeah, so that's what I would say because the beauty of centralization is that it gives like smoother experience, right?
Mhm.
So Web 3.0, the problem might be that the because of lack of centralization, the user experience might be impeded, right? So for example, if you are using your created your ecosystem, I've created my ecosystem,
Right.
and we have tied it by using a token, then the people might have very different experience of being on your ecosystem vis-a-vis mine, right?
Yeah.
On Web 3.0. But if hey, Google is doing like a play, then everything is centrally managed. The transmission is smoother. So from that angle, a lot of functionalities which are highly complicated, they might not be migrating to Web 3.0 from that angle.
So it's an interesting point with respect to decentralization and centralization. Um, are people really, according to you, from what you have spoken about and your own views, how much value are people putting to true decentralization?
How much value are people putting to true decentralization? I think the word itself, like centralization slash decentralization, has many meanings, right?
Mhm.
For example, if you think about it from a regulatory point of view, from a regulatory standpoint, people want less centralization, people want more decentralization,
Right.
because with the spread of power, they feel that hey, there is no like one central authority, decentralization works. But the flip side of that is that you know what, if there is like less decentralization, there is less accountability also,
Right.
right? So that's a problem. If you move this argument to a business side or creating complex function side, then probably like having a centralization authority as of now is useful because you can create more complex application because the user interface will be smoother, so to say, right? But if you move to a decentralized ecosystem, probably the commissions that you will have to pay, it will go down. So it's a pro and con debate of decentralization versus centralization, depending on what element you're looking at.
So I'm going to take another tangent here and go towards take this debate towards what happened with Luna and UST, right? So a lot of decisions that are now being taken in Luna to revive it are pretty centralized. They're not really that decentralized. So firstly, what's your view on what happened with this algorithmic stablecoin UST, and then what happened with Luna?
Right. So number one, algorithmic stable coins were never a proven model, right? Two of the major stable coins in the past have algorithmic stable coins in the past have had failed, or projects had failed. So to Terra Luna falling is not something out of whack, right? So that's part A, right? Part B is that stable coins, all of us know. If we now look at, like, if we move away the discussion from algorithmic stable coins to just generally stable coins in general, everyone knows that they are going to get regulated at some point, right? Probably now that point has been reached due to Terra Luna crisis, which is a good thing for the entire crypto market because it gives legitimacy to the crypto market. Now, if the US government will study these actions, will regulate, let's say, USDC or Tether from this point, or USDC/USDT, then it is good for the entire crypto market because we need stable coins at the end of the day to sort of balance the crypto market, right? To make transitions smoother, and it's overall good for the entire crypto ecosystem. So that needs to be there, right? With regulations coming in, it might be actually a good thing. So that's part B of the entire discussion. And the final part is that it's an evolving technology. Terra Luna, according to me, and this is like my hypothesis, it was not done with malintent, right? Many a times we assume that, you know what, this is like a rug pull, something bad is going to happen. Their idea, as far as I could simplify it, was that it consisted of the following steps. That number one, create like a blockchain, right? Number two, create like a Luna or a native token, right? Use that token to incentivize people to use that blockchain, and use like a stable coin to help people move around that ecosystem. The ultimate objective was that, hey, give Luna to people, and use that stable coin mechanism to fund that project, so to say, and make that and build more functionalities on that blockchain, right? So that was the play that they were going for, right? Unfortunately, it did not work out. That does not mean that all the stable coins are bad. Again, you have to take it as like a investing in a startup, right? Many a times good startups are started with very good intentions, right? But things just do not go well, right? For a wide range of reasons. One of the reasons why Terra Luna fell was, we can go into conspiracy theories also, right? Which Charles Hodgkinson is speaking about, right? And people can Google it, right, to learn more. We can't publicly disclose it, so to say. But if you read more about it, right, it's pretty evident that a lot of like big players had sort of
Vested interest.
exactly, right? So that is one part of the equation. But yeah, I mean, the message that I want to give out is that stable coins will get regulated from this point. It's pretty likely of that happening, and the moment that happens, it's a very good thing for the crypto market overall.
Got it. If someone is looking to start a blockchain project, it seems like the way to do this is like you talked about Terra Luna. Let's start a project, incentivize people to come onto the project. If the incentive wasn't big enough, give even more incentive in terms of tokens. After all, you have a lot of tokens, so you can keep giving them. Ecosystem will get created, and hence the value of the token would rise, right? Is this as simple? Is it as simple like this is exactly what all tokens are doing? Because whether that's taking rewards, whether that's giving incentives to other developers to come, this is exactly the voodoo economics that a lot of people point out for crypto. I mean, is there something real behind this?
So yes and no, in the sense that, is it easy to create for creators? The answer is yes, right? Because the cost of entry or barrier to entry is lower, right, in terms of blockchain development. For example, anyone, right? I mean, if we have a little bit of money, right, then we can start our own blockchain. That is not a problem. We can go to investors, get money, right, and start distributing token and even get it funded, right? So this is a crowdfunding model at play,
Right.
so to say, right? That is the reason why when I started the conversation about crypto and I said that hey, 99% of cryptos are not good, right? Because there is no way for you and I as normal audiences to check the veracity of these claims or
Hmm.
verify it, even by studying the tokenomics part of it, right? Very, very difficult to do. That's A. Part B is that there are teething issues, right, with the entire industry. Even like, for example, Solana blockchain, right? It's
Hmm.
not as if like right now it's like almost proven that, you know what, Solana is like at least not a, it's not trying to take people for a ride, right? It's
Right.
a legitimate blockchain,
Right.
but it does go down from time to time, right?
Right.
Does not mean that, you know what, Solana is a bad project. The speed at which they are transacting, it's more like a layer 3 at this stage, right? Rather than calling it a layer 1, it's layer 3. If you are creating like speed on that project, then of course you will have to, there will be like issues like, network going down, etc., right? It's like, let me give you a parallel example, right? So for example, if let's say that this is the first time we are sending humans to moon,
Hmm.
right? You can put best brains behind it, you can get insane amount of funding, your intentions might be in right place, but probably you will have to blow up 10 rockets
Yeah.
and probably take the 11th rocket to moon, right? So to say, right? So same is the case here, that if you're experimenting with any new technology, a lot of things are unknown, right? A lot of things can go wrong, but that does not diminish the potential of the technology, right? It is there to exist, it will exist, and it will come out one way or the other. We just need to see which ones, right? So therefore I say, until whenever I'm speaking with people, I say that hey, uh, I am a diversified investor in crypto, but the
Right.
level of trust that I have in it about the entire ecosystem, that will the ecosystem of cryptos will survive, the answer seems like a yes. I would have invested 100% of my money in it, right? Given the conviction, but I do
Right.
not invest 100% of it because of these teething issues, and therefore I'm looking at it as an asset class itself.
Got it. Maybe one more question on Web3 is a lot of what we are seeing today, majority of it is building infrastructure, right? Which is obviously a blockchain layer, whether that's layer one, layer two, layer three. A lot of investment from VCs is also going into this infrastructure company. It's almost, if I take the equivalent of Web2, is someone saying, hey, we are going to invest in Android, we are going to invest in AWS, we are going to invest in mobile technology, right? Now, is that valuable? Yes. But the biggest companies that we see today in tech aren't the companies who built infrastructure. So is this changing as far as Web3 is concerned? Like, does infrastructure become more valuable, or are we just seeing an early stage, like you said, of Web3 evolution?
I would say that I would take a slightly different point. I would
Hmm.
presume that even in Web 2.0, and if you look at companies like Facebook, if you look at companies like Amazon or Google, they are building infrastructures, right? In the sense that, for example, AWS theoretically is an infrastructure that is owned by Google, that by Amazon, right?
Hmm.
If you take a look at the entire AdWords market, it is a theoretically a infrastructure which is owned by Google, right? So I think the biggest blockchains or biggest crypto projects would be blockchain oriented, right? Because things and functionalities will be built on that blockchain. Uh, I am a believer in both Bitcoin and Ethereum simply because of the fact that they are somewhat proven blockchains. More functionalities have been built on it, and they have solved the security problem at large.
Hmm.
Can things go wrong with these? Maybe, right? So far, it hasn't, right? So, which is a good vote of confidence. But yeah, my argument would be that the biggest companies that will come out in Web 3.0 might actually build blockchains only.
Cool. So we'll do another diversion like we have been doing. So one of the discussions that we were all having is about property and owning a house. So what do you think? Like, is owning a house an asset or a liability?
So I think it's a very complex question, right? I mean, it comes down to the definition of asset itself, how you're defining an asset, right? If you're defining an asset as something that does not lose value, then owning a house might make sense under certain circumstances or certain times in the economy. Right now, for example, the INR is losing like
Hmm.
is getting deflated, so to say, right? It's losing a lot of value itself. USD is losing a lot of value. So if you are owning a house to protect against yourself from losing this cash component, then makes sense, right? Point to keep in mind is that is it a diversified part of your portfolio, right? Because majority of the people in India, what they end up doing is that they are poorly diversified from a portfolio building point of
Hmm.
view. They're almost like it's negatively diversified, right? I mean, they would not have like any other investment. One house, and EMI is also going to that house, right? So that's not the right way you are defining an asset, right? So it really comes down to the entire equation. But if I have to give you like one sense that, hey, is owning a house an asset, then most likely answer is a no, for the simple fact that there are better real estate that you can own. For example, own like agricultural property, own like commercial plots, commercial properties. uh, I think they will give better returns in terms of asset appreciation, and also you end up getting a cash flow component out of it one way or the other, right? So,
Right.
so yeah, so that's what I would say.
So I think one of the so firstly I agree. Like I really think like house is a liability because it's the same argument I may have with my mother that buying jewelry, which she'll say like, oh, investing in diamonds or gold is an investment, because I always feel like you are so emotionally attached to it that you would never sell it off when you needed money, right? It'll probably be one of the last things to do. Yes, could you sell it off? Maybe, but very tough to do it. So I kind of feel like it's more a liability, it doesn't earn you anything. But there is such an emotional attachment that we as Indians have towards our own place, right? Like it's a like why do you think that's still the case? Like why are we so emotionally attached to wanting to own a place to live?
Multiple reasons, right? And there's value to it, right? For example, you create like memories associated with a house. Your kids grow up there, right? You have that sense of belonging, culture, community, wide variety of things, right? So therefore we have like an emotional attachment. It's probably ingrained in our culture, right? For example, Indians typically do not live a nomadic lifestyle, right? I'm trying to live like a nomadic lifestyle, right? But majority of the Indians do not live like nomadic lifestyle. I think people are becoming slightly more adventurous, right? And with time that would change. But if you go to Australia, if you go to Canada, if you go to a bunch of US states, then what people have started doing is that they have built like mobile homes, right? So they literally live off a van, a decent van, right? A livable van, right? And they are moving their house from place to place, right? And
Right.
living out of nature, so to say,
Right.
right? So that's like more to do with what type of a person you are, rather than to do with like the emotional part of it, right? But right now, yes, like people are tied. People have a lot of emotional attachment to their house, and therefore they buy it also, right? Which makes sense, right? But my only message here would be that, hey, don't emotions mein mat jao, right? I mean, be a little bit sensible there, right? I
Yeah.
mean, it's good to be emotional, no doubt about that, but not at the cost of your financial well-being, right? I mean, don't be
Yeah.
negatively diversified and get into a situation where if for some reason you lose your job and you have an EMI coming of your house and you can't even pay that, that's not the situation you want to be in.
True. But I do agree that, the ownership feeling actually is very valuable. And the ownership feeling actually drives a lot of positive things for the ecosystem. And as a shameless plug of Web3, I'll again say that one of the things that Web3 enables is this ownership, which is why it's still very powerful. Now, maybe let's shift our attention to what is happening with the US economy, the world economy, and the Indian economy. On a secular, since you are a long term investor, on a secular basis, how are you seeing sort of powers of US, China, India shift vis-a-vis the rest of the world?
Right. So it's almost given, and I think this is a narrative that has been going on for a while now, that China is going to overtake US at certain point in time, and that point is very near. The 2020 COVID situation might have acted as a catalyst to accelerate this, and also the election of Trump and the entire debacle there. So it's very, and even like the Joe Biden situation in the US right now is not panning out really well due to his health issues. So I do feel that China is going to accelerate quite fast from this point, given their political structure. To us as external audience, it looks that, hey, it's a very non-democratic country, bunch of negative things associated. Maybe it's right also, but the viewpoint that we need to keep in mind is that Chinese government is directional government. That's A. B, that model has worked really well for them up until this point, at least in terms of raising wealth for everyone in China, right? Liberty oriented issues, maybe not. Western media paints a different picture, we have a different understanding, we can't comment, right? But is that model working so far? You bet, right? I mean, just to give you some estimates, right, till like 1980, India and China were almost at the same podium in terms of our GDP per capita, agriculture oriented economy. A lot of people might not know that in 1960s there was like this big famine that happened in China, and a lot of people, right, I mean, they struggled to even get food, right, during that time in China, right? So that was 60s. And now if you turn the clock in like 30 or 40 years, they pulled out like approximately 850 million people out of poverty, which is,
Staggering.
huge amount, right? So that model has worked, right, one way or the other for them, and they are directional. And I don't think, right, I mean, where they win, right, compared to the other parts of the world is win in the sense economic win is the directional nature of the government. They can get a lot more done because they don't need to build consensus per se, and that's a huge pain relief, right? So they can actually take hard stands for the economy, for their own economy, and that gives them huge leverage, right? I mean, I don't think that there is any other political structure in the world that would be able to compete. I'm not endorsing the political structure that China has, but that model has worked wonderfully well for them up on, at least as of now, and it gives them a competitive advantage.
So then, how does that change the dynamic for India? Like, if China is going to be the next superpower, what US has been for the last 50 odd years at least, what should we as a country do?
So I think it's the model is already there, right? I mean, if you just go and study the history, you're just replacing the word US with China, right? So usually the model follows is that hey, there is like a world leader that is pulling the economic engine of the world. Up until now, it was US. Now US is going back in line. China will become the head of that or
Mm.
engine of that particular train. It will keep on going forward. Now India has, typically speaking, three options. One is that hey, get aligned with China, right? Whatever initiatives they are taking. B, stay neutral, right? And C, being in the or oppose China, right? So third move is something that India has not done, even with the US, right? India was not very pro-US back in 60s, 70s. They were not pro-US. They were pro-Russia, but India maintained a neutral stand. So India most likely will be in, you know, step one, right? Hey, either become pro-China or B, stay neutral, right? So
Right.
that's it.
Is there a way for India to become the engine for the world, and what is needed?
So I would say that, again, if we go boil down things to the absolute basics, right? So look at it mathematically, right? That hey, what is India's primary economic advantage? It's the young demography
Mm.
that India has.
Mm.
How do you increase the wealth for everyone and become an economic superpower? Because the reality is that the richest country on earth is going to lead that engine or be that
Right.
economic engine. So
Right.
that's how it is, whether we like it or not. So how do we increase our GDP, right, or increase wealth in our country? So very simple that hey, number of times of work, number of people in the working age population times their productivity equals GDP, right? So that is
Mm.
the equation that we are trying to optimize for. So how do we optimize for this entire equation? Very simple that hey, almost like 60% of our population is still engrossed in agriculture, and its contribution to GDP is like what, 12-15%, right?
Yeah.
Which is really bad,
Yeah.
really bad number, right? We should leapfrog to more productive things, right? It could be Web 3.0, Web 2.0, whatever it is, right? But the point is that he improve GDP, improve productivity for people, give them high value jobs, figure out a way to make that happen, right? That is how you become like an economic engine, right? I mean, and beach may you will have to fill out all the void, right? That hey, you do it through manufacturing or
Mm.
service sector, Web 3.0, Web 2.0, whatever that is,
Mm.
right? You have to figure it out eventually. But that is the simple roadmap that hey, if people are spending their time fighting about unproductive things,
Mm.
X versus Y political party, or like whatever, like religious sentiments
Mm.
brewing up, that is not good for the youth of the nation. I'll give you a classic case in point, right? And I'll speak something very controversial, right? I feel that something like UPSC, right,
Mm.
an exam, we have an entire commission on it, right? This is no disrespect, but it is madness to see like
Mm.
students, right, in the age group 20 to probably like 30, spending 2 to 3 years of their productive life giving to an exam, right?
Yeah.
But what value is it creating for the GDP, right? You are taking someone's peak time away for 3 years, multiply by number of people who write that exam, 5 lakhs. So how
Right.
many years that 5 lakh into 3? 15 lakh years, right? Every year, or like 15 lakh year in a
In
time
our
span
entire
of,
country, yeah.
yeah. So that is like crazy amount of money that you're losing, creating almost zero GDP per se
Yeah.
through those students, right? I
Yeah.
mean, of course, it creates GDP for like educational coaching
Right.
institutes, whatnot, if you
Right.
call it.
But
But
that
is
is
it? Yeah,
minuscule compared to what it could have been.
exactly. Right.
So, so it's an interesting point. Like, one thing I would, when you were telling me this, I was wondering that China is completely centralized, like you said. India is definitely a lot more democratic, a lot more decentralized. We have also seen this in the example of sort of Web3 projects. Since I live and breathe Web3, everything is a comparison and analogy to me. Is it the case that actually decentralization is going to slow things down, as far as if your ultimate objective is the economic engine, and let's keep that as the parameter, is it going to be the answer that, look, centralization is going to win more or less versus decentralization, which is more democratic? You need to have more people agreeing to doing things, which by nature is going to take more time.
Again, I'll say something very controversial, right? We and this is a fact, right? We believe that democracy is good, right? But if you actually study the history of the different nations, almost 50% of the failed state are democracy states, right? So that is what the stats tell us, right?
Wow.
So our assumption here is incorrect that hey, democracy is good per se. I'm
Right.
not preaching for like dictatorship or something like that. I'm just telling you a fact that
Yep.
exists. Important takeaway is that yes, centralization is always going to be more effective in terms of generating economic output compared to decentralization. But problem with centralization is the intent, right? One of the reasons why a country like Singapore grew so fast was because of the centralization of power, and it was used for the right reasons and with the right intent, and it created immense wealth for that small nation, right? If that can be done and if that model can be replicated all across the globe, then probably we don't even need decentralization per se, right?
Right.
From that angle. But again, you are vesting or trusting individuals to make those decisions. Will they be smoother, right? If we give hand over all the power that Indians have to one person, maybe, right? But that
Yeah.
person needs to be like super trustworthy, right? I mean, that's the
Right.
simple bottom line argument.
Got it. And how do we actually move this? I'm going to go back to your argument of I'm also astounded that why is it that so many people, like I did law much later in my life, and I would say like 60% of people in campus law center doing law are actually doing it while they're actually taking the UPSC exam. And it astounds me. I think you're only saying 3 years. Most of the people I know were actually taking this exam for 5 years. The success rate is super duper low, and it astounds me that they don't do anything else. Why is it that people are going towards these government jobs and want to become a UPSC? There are enough. I would have thought that there are enough opportunities to become an entrepreneur. If you want to create wealth, you can do it by doing that. Get into government jobs, private jobs, over and above the UPSC. Why do we still have this drive to go towards such
Right.
areas?
So that would become like a 1 hour answer, right? But I'll keep it short. But so here is the bottom line. Right? I mean, a lot of things. There are multiple reasons for it,
Hmm.
right? I mean, of course, but two, three top ones would be that the sense of security, right? That you have, the sense of celebrity culture that you has, the sense of easy money that people have, which is highly flawed now.
Hmm.
Making money as a IS or like XYZ thing used to be very easy, right? And I'll not say anything more than that on that topic, but I hope you get the picture right around there. But now, is it? I don't know, right? Probably not, right? With all the transparency being integrated into the system. So that's the viewpoint, right? But I would say that, the entire mix of all these things, the power, money, sitting with politicians, etc. So that is lucrative to a very large group of audiences. And that is culturally driven, right? If you go, especially, right? I mean, for example, go to Mumbai, right? No one cares about becoming like a, or like majority of the people, or that fascination with UPSC is not
Yeah.
there, right?
Yeah.
But if you go to Madhya Pradesh, or if you
Yeah.
go to Uttar Pradesh, or if you go to Bihar, if you go to Jharkhand,
Even
Jharkhand,
Delhi to
etc.
a large extent.
Yeah. So there, that is the the power wala angle, right? I think, rather, if I have to boil down my answer to one statement here, right, it would be that because it gives a common person a taste of power, and it's probably the easiest way to get to power, right? That hey, or perceivably easiest way of getting to power is clear UPSC, you get power, right? So
Right.
that is the math that people are doing in their head. Yeah, the UPSC exam clear kar liya, so we become like powerful. So that is probably the reason why people are fascinated with this.
So I think continuing this, Akshat, what do you think the steps should be taken to incentivize people to get out of this? Like, how do we incentivize people to even, go into more productive sectors in India away from agriculture? Of course, agriculture is very important. We need it. Food security is important, but it is definitely not the most productive area right now. We can do a much better job there. How are we going to do this transition then?
So again, it's a very broad question. So my 2 3 steps, according to me, would be first and foremost would be creating an enabling ecosystem, right? if people have access to opportunities, they can then explore it, right? Second would be providing them with enough skill set. Again, I don't think that that would be a big challenging issue if done properly.
Right.
And then third system should be meritocracy system, right? Very similar to how US has followed that system, right? Israel has followed that system to a very large extent, that rewarding meritocracy. So these would be like three top levers in terms of getting people to high productive industries.
And do you think like this difference of meritocracy that we see in outside countries versus what we see in India, and I think that's also one reason why a lot of Indians who go away from India are so successful outside. I mean, the skill set, the knowledge base, the people are still the same. The people in India versus the people in the US. I think just today I was reading a chart where they said that average salary in the US for an average American uh, across all sort of origins is 55,000. If you take an Indian American, it's 100,000. That's the highest, right? Um, so why is it that in India we are not able to have this meritocracy? Like, what has been the issue so far?
Multiple issues, right? I mean,
Hmm.
I think again, it's like short-term political sugar rush, right?
Right.
It's easy to divide people than unite people, right? Even if you're speaking fact-based things, you can be pretty much criticized India if it is hurting certain sentiment, right? Which is not the right way of going about things.
Right.
Politicians understand it. They pull these type of triggers all the time, right?
Right.
There are a lot of things that do not make any sense, but they are incorporated. I'll give you an example, right? For example, a few years ago, there was this entire concept of bringing in reservation in private jobs. Right? Forget about like government jobs. It was reservation in private jobs for
Yeah.
companies, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It was a big issue,
Yeah.
right? And it was probably like a very ill thought move, because think about it this way, that hey, if you bring like reservations in private jobs also, and if Google has to compete, why would they even consider opening up offices in India? They would
Yeah.
rather go to like Vietnam or Bangladesh, etc., and then you lose all the jobs, right?
Yeah.
And it's such a basic commonsensical thing, but why would politicians fan this issue? Simply because it gets them more votes, right? So yeah, I mean, I think a divisive politics, if we can remove, I think that solves like a lot of problems in India, right? So
So
that's
see,
what I would say.
my view is that politicians are always like everywhere in the world. This is nothing to do just with India. They are gonna sell what most people buy, right? So the only way to change this is people themselves, right? So why is it that as a country we haven't yet come to the point that we cannot get divided by religion or caste or such measures? Like what is lacking, or is it too ingrained in us that it is going to be very difficult to change now?
I don't know, right? So I mean, that's a complex question, super
Right.
complex question. But what I would say is that um, the divisiveness around it would be that it's not about like it's manifestation of divisiveness, right? I mean, I think if you appeal to a certain because systems can be designed in certain way, right? Think
Hmm.
about Twitter, for example,
Hmm.
right? Twitter is designed in such a way that anger comes out, right? Because the character limit on Twitter is
Hmm.
deliberated around like 240, 250 characters.
Right.
You will write like incomplete, half-baked stuff. People will create noise, right? And it becomes like a talking point. And that is the way that social media has been designed.
Interesting.
So
Okay.
it's not as if that people become more aggressive on Twitter, right? It's just that the system has been designed by the company in such a way that it brings out anger, right? So similarly, I think all these qualities that we have as Indians, even bunch of other countries would have, right? The US citizens would have, like European citizens would have, we would have all that stuff, right? But who is fanning that anger in what direction? That's a simple viewpoint there, right? In the US, you are right that hey, politicians will always play with that divisiveness card, but in what to what extent, right? And does it hurt you at a systemic level, right? So systemic level, again, going back to that example of private sector reservation per se, if you do it, it is hurting a system. It is hurting the entire meritocracy system. I don't think US has ever done it from that
Hmm.
viewpoint, because it just destroys wealth more than creating wealth. And if you're destroying wealth, then you're left with nothing to redistribute, right? So redistribution is one component of it, but you can only redistribute wealth once you have created enough wealth to begin with, right? So at least in the US, they are not messing up with the system of wealth creation, right? Or not messing up with that wealth creation system at a systemic level, right?
Right.
But yeah.
So I think what you're saying rightly is first focus on growing the pie, then worry about more of this redistribution of the pie. Um, that'll probably bring me back to what I think will be the last part of my questioning to you, and I'll take it back to Web3. I really feel that really one way for India to increase that pie would be to actually endorse Web3. But we have seen the RBI, etc., being very reticent, right? Why do you think that's the case? What's the worry that the government and RBI have?
If we can go to the history and if we study the entire history, we always look to authority figures, right?
Hmm.
In a way, that is somewhat ingrained, right, for the last several decades, that we need someone taking blame for certain things, right? And I'll speak in defense of the government, right?
Hmm.
That hey, for example, if anything goes wrong in the stock market, who will people blame?
Yeah, the
Government. Okay.
government. Yep.
So therefore government needs to regulate stock market. Now I flip the question that if something goes wrong in Web3, then who will people blame, right? Again, indirectly it will come to the government, right? One
True.
way or the other. So therefore probably RBI slash government is being proactive, and it is trying to sort of play that authority card for the right reasons. I don't know, right? I'm not qualified enough to speak on that, but that is the argument that I can give in order to defend the government, so to say.
Got it. And what can be done for people or the community who wants Web3 to convince the government in this? Or is there no convincing because this very need of having an authority to look after us is very ingrained in us?
To be honest, practically speaking, I don't think that change will be an internal change in India, the Web3 change. It will be an external shock to India, right? Very similar to how it played out in during the LPG reforms, right? So many people assume that a LPG reform happened because we wanted to bring those changes, right?
Hmm.
Or we wanted to benefit from globalization. The answer is not. If you study about this topic, you would quickly realize that the LPG reforms were undertaken in India because we were inching in towards a debt crisis, and we had to go and restructure our loans with IMF, and IMF put a condition that you have to open up your economy,
Yeah.
right? So that was the reason why LPG reforms took place and India embraced globalization. So something similar will happen in Web 3.0, that other countries might grow to an extent that India is losing out massively, and then the head of the power, right, or head of Web3, whichever country that is, it could be like US,
Yep.
China, whichever, they would come and they will tell you that, you know what, you want to benefit, bring these changes, right? So then that is when the structural change in Web3 in India will happen. It will be an external driven change, according to me, not an internal change.
Wow, that is a pretty interesting viewpoint. I do think that you're correct. I do see that given what steps India and the government have taken with respect to Web3 and crypto, it seems like it'll be a push driven change rather than a pull driven change, which is the exact opposite of what we would have wanted. Akshat, thank you so much.
Right.
Very, very interesting conversation as
Thanks.
always. And I hope all of you are enjoying this. If there are more questions for Akshat, please put them on the comments. And if you want to hear us bring Akshat back for more topics, please let us know. Thank you again, Akshat, so much.
Thanks.